This video is for my students who are preparing for the Southwest Florida Youth Symphony audition. There's this excerpt you have. It's the Marche Militaire from Camille Saint-Saëns's Algerian Suite, and it goes quite fast. The goal tempo is from 110 BPM to 132 for the half note. Now, most of you have been working on this for a while, and I think for the most part you're at the point where you're comfortable with it. You know, you're used to the style and these things, but it just feels impossibly fast, that goal tempo. So what I'm going to do today is walk you through a practice process. Unfortunately, you do still have to practice to be able to play fast. That'll help you get up to that goal tempo by the audition later this month. At some point in your lesson, I have probably said to you, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That's a quote that comes from the Navy SEALs, and it was the thing that, for me, really helped click this process, how we want to slow things down, how slow practice works, and why we need to smooth out things in our playing before we can play them fast. Because if you can't play something smooth, slowly, when you try to speed it up, it's going to become a mess, and you're going to be tripping over yourself. So here's how we're going to work through that. I'm going to set my metronome to 108. Yes, that's slower than the goal tempo. Why I'm doing that is we have this lovely feature on YouTube called playback speed. If this feels too fast, it's still below the goal tempo, but if it feels too fast, you can set it to 0.75, and that will probably be closer to the tempo you are used to now. On the other hand, if you play through this a few times and you're feeling comfortable with 108, you can switch it to 1.25 playback speed, and that will be close to the upper bound of the tempo requirement for this excerpt, which is, I think it's actually 135 if you set it to that. The upper limit is 132. So what we're going to do, we're going to start actually at the end of this excerpt, which is measure 59, which is the part I'm going to guess is giving you the most trouble. And here's what we're going to do. I'm going to set my metronome to 108, and we're just going to play through that like you've been practicing it. To start, 108 is going to be our quarter note. This is from 59. Before we move on with this, we want to make sure we're playing with a nice, even bow stroke, not lifting the bow off the string. That's going to be important in a minute. And getting all those accidentals. It's like an F major scale, but we have B natural in there, right? And some accidentals to follow. So the next step of this, when you're doing this, make sure you watch how much bow you're using. How much bow am I using? So about that much. The next step is we're going to use half as much bow, but we're going to go twice as fast. So this is going to become your half note. Left hand moves the same speed, but the bow is going to go twice as fast. So your double notes become quadruples. The single notes become doubles. After this point, we're not really going to worry about playing those last few bars of quarter notes, but I want you to do it first just so you can get used to the tempo change between going really fast and then what the quarter notes sound like in that fast tempo. So once you can do that, you can get through that part with the quadruples. It might feel a little bit awkward at first, but remember, left hand is not going any faster. The only thing we're speeding up is the bow. And this stroke is eventually what we're going to use when we play it in the goal tempo. But before we get there, this is what we're going to do next. The left hand always has to be ahead of the bow, so we're going to work on speeding up the left hand now. So we're going to set it back to that 108 to the half note, and what we're going to do is play now the double notes as single notes, and we're going to slur the single notes. I'm going to show you how we're going to work through that. I have a feeling most of you are going to be able to get through the double notes pretty quickly, so let's do that section first. It'll be faster. So now we're going back to our slightly longer bow, but the single notes are going to be in tempo. So we're going to do 2 at a time, 2 in a slur with the rest in between. Sounds like this. If you can't get through all those right away, your process is going to be one group at a time. Think about the next group. Go back to the beginning, add another group. So on and so forth. Once you can get through that whole segment in slurs of 2, we're going to do slurs of 4 with the metronome. Same thing. 4 to a bow, stop in between. Now, if you need to break it down more than that, perfectly fine. Pause this video, go ahead and do that. But I'm going to keep going to keep this from getting insanely long. Next, once you can do 4, keep adding notes until you can do all 8 notes in one bow. Add 1, add 2, add 3, add 4, that's 8. Next bar, next bar. Once you can do that rhythmically, we are going to go backwards from that, 8 in a bow without stopping. Again, if you need to do 1 bar, add another bar, do 3 bars, perfectly fine. You can break it down that way. From 8, we're going to go backwards to 4 to a bow without stopping. Then, guess what's next? Is 2. Once you can do that, your fingers are moving at the goal tempo. So then our next step is to put together what we did earlier with our fingers. And that is the slowest that I would play this excerpt. Once you work up to it, it will take some time. You may only get through the first 2 or 3 steps here in the first day, and that's fine. Stay on it for a few days until it's comfortable, then move on to the next one, then on to the next one. You do not want to rush this process. Completely defeats the purpose. Remember, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Now this is the part of the excerpt you're probably going to have to work on the hardest, but you can apply this same concept to the rest of it. If we go to the beginning, you can practice those 8th notes this same way. Same tempo, 108. Let's do it. Just the scale at first. So say you get through that. Let's do 4 and stop. Next is 8. Once you can do that, then we're going to go backwards without stopping. 4, 2, then see if you can do it single notes. That's it. Do the same thing with the scale that follows a few bars from there. Now before you do the whole thing, once you know you can play these in tempo, we're actually going to take it back to half tempo and play through the whole passage and see if we can get all the articulations, all the dynamics, smooth and slow. So we're going to make 108 the quarter note now and play through the whole first part, which will be, let's say, beginning to that second line there. This is the quarter note. Articulation. Once you can do that a few times comfortably, again, paying attention to how much bow you're using. We're going to do half as much bow, twice as fast. Now you might not be able to do all of that right away, but see how many measures you can get through. Add one at a time, but do not attempt it at that tempo until you've practiced just the scale on its own, because I can guarantee you that'll be the part that trips you up. And if you find there's something else once you start to speed it up, then go back and do the same process with that. Do half tempo, slurred, go up to 8, go back. Or however works out for the rhythm you have there. So for that section, proceed that way. And then we have this middle section here that starts in, what would that be? Oh, going on from where I stopped, 32, 33 there. These notes are not as fast, so I think you guys will be able to use the same half tempo method here. So we're going to do first 108 for the quarter. Again, please do that whole thing. Articulation, dynamic style, be paying attention to all that stuff, and your bow distribution. Let's do 33. You have plenty of time to shift. Watch the crescendo here. More bow. And look at that. We've done all of it, almost to the third section. So now we're going to play that much, half as much bow, twice as fast. I'm going to play through the whole thing, but if you need to split it into two sections, that being the part to A and then A to where we just stopped, perfectly fine. I'm going to play through the whole thing. Now this becomes our half note. And that's it. I guarantee you anything. If it gets tricky, if your fingers are tripping up, it's because you're moving too fast. So try doing smaller sections, try doing it slower, either slow down this video or pick a slower tempo. And you're probably also moving too much. So the key to this is that we are actually using half of the bow when we're going twice as fast. Because if you need to go faster, you need to move smaller, right? So that's the goal here. If you guys have any questions, we'll cover them in the lessons, or feel free to ask me beforehand. But that's the idea. Hopefully this helps.